All right, welcome back to AJM in the AM. I'm just going to kick off an impromptu live stream on NFL Sunday. I know people are probably watching those games instead, but got to get through this. The NBA season is coming right around the corner, and we have 5 more divisions to touch on. So we're going to start things off with the Atlanta Hawks. They had an interesting offseason. You got rid of John Collins, finally. They sent him to the Utah Jazz. He's kind of been in no man's land when it came to the trade rumors, and he's finally gone. They also lose Aaron Holiday. But we'll go back to John Collins. He's coming off of the second worst season of his career. He averaged 13 points and 6.5 rebounds, a career low, and 29% shooting from three, also a career low. What did they bring in? 5 incoming rookies: Kobe Buffkin, Mohamed Gay, Jarkel Joyner, Seth Lundy, Miles Norris, and Keaton Wallace. And they bring on 2 really good veterans, and Wesley Matthews and Patty Mills. Decent for a veteran presence in a locker room that doesn't really have much of it. Their offseason kind of a bit of a lateral move. They're leaning more on internal growth than anything else, right? AJ Griffin had a promising young rookie career, only 19 years old, a lot of upside from him. I think everybody expects DeAndre Hunter to take a step forward, and Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are 2 of the best young guards in the league. But a lot of this is going to be predicated on that growth from AJ Griffin and from DeAndre Hunter. Because Trae Young's kind of at that plateau now. Is what he is. He's going to give you 29 and 10 a night, which is superstar numbers. It's just a matter of where are you going to fill in the rest of it? Where are you going to fill in the defensive shortcomings, right? DeJounte Murray is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. He's going to be able to fill in alongside of him. Hopefully, AJ Griffin can get a little better on that end. Bringing in Sadiq Bey from the Detroit Pistons was a solid addition. And then what's going to happen with their center position, right? Because they're leaning on Clint Capella right now, but Onyeka Okongwu is on the way. He looks like he's going to be that guy. A phenomenal rim runner, has added a little bit of range to his game that Clint Capella just doesn't give you. Capella is one of the best rim runners in the game, one of the best rebounders in the game, really good hands around the rim, and he catches almost every lob that Trae Young throws to him. But it's looking like that time is coming to an end, and Okongwu seems to be the guy that's going to take that place and potentially be an upgrade. He seems like he's in that trajectory as is. Now, what can they do? A lot of their financial capabilities are hamstrung by those contracts doled out to Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Trae Young right now, let me pull it up, is getting paid $40 million this season. Clint Capella on a $20 million contract. DeAndre Hunter's contract just kicked in, $20 million as well. Bogdanovich on the wrong side of 30, getting paid almost $19 million. DeJounte's on the last year of that really good contract, but he's making 17 still. Okongwu's going to have to get paid soon. This is his last team option, making $8 million, and then everybody else is kind of on those lower end salaries, the 6, the mid-level exceptions, and the rookie extensions, or the end of rookie deals, or beginning of rookie deals in the case of Kobe and AJ. So they have a little bit of mobility. I think Clint Capella will be a desirable player for a lot of teams. He's still incredibly athletic, and even when that athleticism starts to wane, he has the size to kind of age well as one of those centers that doesn't have a finesse game. He's going to continue to grab 10 rebounds a game, give you between 15 and 20 points if you get him a lot of opportunities around the basket, where he is one of the best finishers in the game too. So they do have some mobility. They have a couple of draft picks. They have 2 tradable firsts, 4 altogether, so 2 swaps, 2 firsts, and 6 second rounders. And despite them having some high-end salary, they have surprisingly tradable cap. Right, I just named all the players. 2 guys making $20 million. Those are 2 of those high mid-range contracts. You have Bogdanovich, who may not be that tradable because of how long-term his money is, but it's only $18 million. Maybe you can get rid of that. DeJounte, you're not going to trade him. And then everybody else is in those lower like rookie deals. You could probably move off from them with a couple of first-round picks to pick up another player that maybe they're missing. They might be able to pick up a wing. I know Toronto might be on the cusp of blowing it all up. Atlanta might become a trade partner with them. Still, this team is scrappy. I do believe that they have an opportunity to make the playoffs, but I don't see them getting past the first round, right? When you look at this roster, maybe they could do an upset, maybe, but for the most part, it feels like that magic they captured in a bottle where they made the conference finals was just that. It was just lightning in a bottle. And it kind of pump faked them to believe that they had a championship caliber team without the success of it. And we've seen them losing over and over again from that. Now they're having a 500 season. And to their credit, though, despite them not having the high-end playoff success that they're looking for, the franchise has done a really good job drafting players. And you can just look at that roster, see the young talent that's there, especially with Okongwu and AJ Griffin coming in the last couple of years, that they have the ability to continue to build up through the draft and potentially make that championship caliber roster they're looking for. But at the moment, I kind of see them staying the same, right? They were 41-41. They made the 7th seed and they got, well, they lost in 6, but they kind of got washed in the playoffs. But we'll move on. We have the Miami Heat. They had a weird season, going 44-38, barely making the play-in at all. They came within 3 minutes of losing to the Chicago Bulls for the 8th seed. And now where do you start, right, with this team in the offseason? Because it was a loud one for them. Who do they lose? Udonis Haslem is now retired. Victor Oladipo, despite being injured, was traded to OKC. Max Strus, one of their rotation guards and wings, went over to Cleveland. Gabe Vincent, starting point guard, went to the Lakers. Cody Zeller, backup big man, went to New Orleans, and they whiffed on the Damian Lillard trade saga. Now, who did they gain? All that went out the window. What came back into South Beach? Thomas Bryant was a very solid backup center. He played phenomenally for the Lakers, and then he got moved over to the Nuggets, and now he's actually a champion, and he's going to this roster that doesn't have, I guess, championship experience anymore outside of the coaching position. Well, I guess Kyle Lowry's still there, but now they have it in the center spot and the most recent championship that the league has to offer from last year. He was phenomenal with them. He became a bit of a highlight recently with Victor Wembanyama dunking from the three-point line, pulling off a Michael Jordan Space Jam over him, completely blowing everybody's mind. But they added some. He's actually really good. He can play some spot minutes. He knows how to play the game, and he has a nice little touch around the basket beyond just being a rim runner dunker. He has a couple of post moves, as well as being a stretch five. He has a solid three-point shot. Jaime Jaquez looks like a very promising young guard wing. I can't really see what position he plays because he kind of does all of it. He's a really talented player with a lot of promise and upside. They bring back Josh Richardson, which I know he kind of fell out of favor in a lot of other places that he's been, but his best seasons were with Miami after they drafted him. So maybe they can regain some of that potential that we saw his first stint in the NBA. They retained Kevin Love, of course. Kevin Love was a difference maker for them after the buyout market. And Orlando Robinson was also retained, who's been brilliant in Summer League, hasn't played that much in preseason, but a lot of potential there. Stretch five, crazy good rebounder, good motor. If you were to grade all of this out, it would probably be like an F or a D because of how the Dame saga went, right? But, well, let's go back to the grade. It'll probably be like an F or a D. You lose two pivotal rotation players. I know Strus and Vincent they were phenomenal players for their run. They were huge in beating the Knicks and beating the Celtics alike with how well they played in those series. And they don't really have exactly good guard depth to cover. Kyle Lowry is rapidly aging. I know he still has great moments defensively in terms of taking charges and his quick hands around the basket, but Gabe Vincent became a starter for a reason. He filled in that role and was able to give consistent energy and consistent shooting where he didn't need those streaky games. The effort was there every time because he was young and he had the ability to do so. Now they lost that, and he's also been familiar with the system. This is like his third year or fourth year with the Heat, where he's kind of shown growth and development. Again, in the guard spot or low wing, Duncan has been in and out of the rotation. Obviously, he had some great moments for the Heat during their playoff run. I think he had like 18 points against what was it, the second half against the Celtics. He was dominant. Really good shooter, of course, and he's really trying on the defensive side of things, which all you can ask for any player. Effort is the biggest thing you can get out of anybody on any given night. And Duncan Robinson does not lack any of that. It's just he doesn't have the physical tools to deal with some of the better players in the league, and he becomes a target consistently because of that. And in turn, if he's not shooting his threes and he's not getting a positive defensive player, then what are you gaining from him? He's just a net negative. And because of that, he was out of the rotation for large chunks of the season. To his credit, though, he never let it bother him. Whenever he got the opportunity to play, he played, and he played well. Jaime being a rookie, they have to rely on him more now. And Hero seems like he's really upset about everything that happened, more so towards Portland than towards the Heat for wanting to trade him. And they may be relying on him taking that next step as a basketball player, which he definitely can. Josh Richardson, I've just talked about him for the guard. He could bolster a little bit of depth, but it feels more like a floor-raising move than a ceiling-raising one, right? He's not that player that's going to be like, I'm going to give you 30 tonight. Josh Richardson isn't that guy, but he will consistently give you 5, 3, and 2, 5, 3, and 3, maybe hit you with a 10 ball, a couple of games. We'll see. One player that I do want to keep an eye on for the Miami Heat this whole season is going to be Nikola Jovic. I think that we saw a lot of what he's capable of in the FIBA games, and he's really good. He has a great jump shot, a solid stroke around the rim, and he's like 6'10", so he has the ability to play the guard spot, but play in the post, which is a kind of a unique look for a player of his caliber. I think that he's going to be an awesome player and someone that's going to get a lot of opportunity now, especially with Jimmy Butler hitting 34 years old. And at a certain point, you can expect him to miss about 20 to 25 games. I think he's played in the high 50s, low 60s every season since 2017, which is crazy. Let me see if I could find that stat. Jimmy Butler played 64 games this past season. And then before that, 57, 52, 58, 65. And the last time he played over 65 games was 2017 when he played 75. So you can pencil in between 17 and 20 games missed off of Jimmy Butler. So having a player like Nikola Jovic who can come in and be a consistent scoring option would be great. And as I mentioned before, Orlando Robinson, I think, is going to have a lot of opportunity to kind of develop. He showed quite a bit over the course of the season, especially in terms of being a stretch 5 and someone that can be consistent energy on the court for them. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for him to play not in non-Bam minutes, right? It's going to be very limited. Obviously, Bam's going to give you 33 minutes a night and like 70 games a year. But in that time that Bam's not on, Orlando Robinson might be the option. And one of the players that I'm also really interested in on this team, we saw a lot of him during the postseason towards the end of it, Haywood Highsmith. I think he has a lot of high-level playmaking, defensive instincts, and the ability to knock down threes at a consistent clip that can really make that team thrive in certain aspects. However, with the upper echelon Eastern Conference, like the Bucks, the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Knicks improving, the Heat may find themselves in the bottom 4 of the postseason again, which, if there's any team that it doesn't really matter for, it's probably Miami, right? Home court advantage isn't exactly important for them with how consistent they can perform with or without the energy of home court. They are able to steal home court a lot, which they've done the last few seasons. Something that I think is going to be beneficial. However, all that matters for them is just making the playoffs. Like, can they hold their own against any and everybody? I think so. Did they lose rotation players? Yeah, they did. But if there's any team that can sustain that, it's been the culture and the building of unknown players in Miami. I do think they're not going to have one of those upper echelon years like they did a few years back when they were the 1 seed in the East. But 45 to 48 wins feels about right for this squad. And I think that one thing that they're going to have to watch over, and we're going to have to watch over as fans, is going to be their injury luck. They've had a lot of injury problems over the last few seasons. Most of it's due to age, right? Jimmy Butler's in his mid-30s. As I told you, you can basically check off 17 to 20 games missed a year, maybe a little bit more. Kyle Lowry's in his mid-30s, late 30s, I think like 37. You can pencil him to miss some time. Tyler Hero gets like a tweaked ankle, sprained wrist, sprained shoulder. I think he played like 60-something games last year. Let me pull that up as well. 67, so that's 15 games out right off the top. And he hasn't played that's the most he's played in any season of his career. There's a couple of things like that are really going to affect them, which is why I think they're going to miss someone like Max Strus, who was available all the time, right? He missed a few games, but for the most part, he played a lot. He was in the 70 range. He played 80 games last year. Let's see what he did for his career. Why is it opening up game logs? That's not what I'm looking for. Overview. There you go. He played 80 games last year and 68 the year before. So he's been a bit of an Iron Man for his career. Still, mid to high 40s, I think is about right for the Heat. But all they need to do is make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, they can beat anybody on any given night. That's just the level of tactician that Eric Spoelstra is and the level of effort that they never leave on the table, right? 50-50 balls tend to go Miami's way because they put the effort to get them. That's the stuff that matters in playoff basketball alongside, putting your players in the right spots and maximizing their downside, which is what Eric Spoelstra has done his entire career. Still, Heat going to be solid. Not New Orleans, Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets. Man, I wish I could not talk about this team. They were 14th in the East last year, 27-55. They didn't really lose too much. Dennis Smith Jr., kind of like a journeyman now in the NBA. Kelly Oubre, now on the Sixers, 20 points per game, but it was like empty calories, right? Because they weren't really playing to win at a certain point after LaMelo Ball just continuously got injured and just couldn't stay in the lineup. Svi Mykhailiuk, solid player, but nothing crazy. They bring in Brandon Miller. They burn the number 2 pick. Instead of going for Scoot, they get Brandon Miller because of the fit, I guess, alongside Miles Bridges and LaMelo. They bring back Miles, which I just mentioned, after his domestic violence case. They have 2 undrafted players, Frank Ntilikina, RJ Hunter, Nick Smith Jr., and Edmund Sumner. It's kind of like a mid-tier, I guess, like off-season. If I were to give him a grade, maybe like a C or something. I can't really grade it because of what's going on with Miles. The last time Miles and LaMelo were healthy and actually played was 2 years ago now. The 2022 season, they finished 43-39, and they were, what seed is this? Why is it 10th in the Eastern Conference? So they missed the playoffs. But even so, like, it was an exciting young team. And now they're playing here with a guy who hasn't played basketball in a year, who I know the last time he actually played was averaging 20 points per game. But is he going to play again? He just got arrested again for violating his parole and violating some kind of restraining order, attacking his ex-girlfriend's car with a child in it. Like, there are certain allegedly, there are certain situations that you can't find yourself in, and he's found himself in that twice now, 2 back-to-back seasons, and left a lot of money on the table to do so. He was basically in line to get paid a max contract last year, and because of this, he ended up having to sit the whole year out, ended up having to take a qualifying offer of $7 million when he could have been getting paid 20 plus. Mighty unfortunate. And then you get Brandon Miller, who we don't really know what he is, but he was pretty horrific in Summer League. In preseason, he had a highlight dunk that got called back. It should have been a dunk. People are still showing it as a highlight, which I think is pretty cool. RJ Hunter was one of their additions. He hasn't played in the NBA since 2019. So what has he learned overseas the last couple of years? And a lot of their success is going to be predicated around LaMelo Ball being healthy. But he just missed an entire year. He played like 30 games. So are those injuries going to be in that season? Is it in the past now? Or are they going to continue to prop up where he only plays like 20 games? And now it's looking like it may be consistent with how Lonzo just got injured and missed out a lot of time, right? Missing another whole season, potentially 2 years in a row. LaMelo may find himself in the same boat. I don't know the severity of his injuries. I don't know exactly what he went through, but he missed a lot of time. And despite himself being a phenomenal talent, right? He's a guy who this season put up 23 points, 8 assists, and 6 boards on 37% from 3, which is solid. It's phenomenal stats there. And he's improved every single season he's been in the league. But they kind of need him in order for them to show the success that they're capable of. Oh, that was a mouthful. So next up, we have Gordon Hayward, who's on the last year of his contract, $30 million. That could be a pretty good trade piece for like cap filler as an expiring deal for a team that's looking to get off of money. Let's see what their draft capital is. They have 6 first round picks, all of which are their own. 2025, 2026, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So that's 6 first round picks. They can trade 3 of those and swap on 3 of those. They have a couple of second round picks. So they have the ability to make maneuvers. It's just a matter of finding the cap to do so as well. My camera just shut off. Battery dead. Beauty of being live. Camera died on me. That was unfortunate. It's getting kind of spooky. Yeah, gotta get in line for this season. It's time for season. Yeah, there you go. Camera just died on me. Sorry about that. But yeah, LaMelo Ball, phenomenal talent. Gordon Hayward, trade bait potentially. Really good player still. He came off of averaging 14.7 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists. Kind of a do-it-all player. Although he didn't shoot the ball particularly well from 3. He has done so in the past, so something that you can kind of see coming back. Terry Rozier, very good player, potential trade bait as well. He's locked in for a few years too. Let's look at his payroll. Terry Rozier is locked in, $23 million this year, $25 next year, and $26.6 in 2026. And he's shown no signs of slowing down. 21 points a game this season, 5 assists, and 4 boards. A guy who kind of can do it all as well. Bit of an undersized 2-guard, but still a very good, potentially complementary player if you have a really big point guard too. It just doesn't all seem to work out combined, especially this past year with LaMelo not playing for the most part. It's just, what is the impact going to be for this team when it comes to games missed? Because what's their depth, right? Their top tier depth, they don't really have anything, right? Gordon Hayward is not the player he used to be on Utah. Terry Rozier is a really good basketball player, but he kind of is more of a supplementary scorer in line with like a CJ McCollum, right? A guy who can give your star backup points, like a Jason Terry type of player. Then you have LaMelo Ball, who is a bona fide star. It's just he has to be able to stay on the court. And now the rest of the Eastern Conference has gotten so much better, and the Hornets have taken a step back and trying to take a step forward. They're kind of stuck in this no man's land of what is their future maneuverability. The Orlando Magic, I feel like, has passed them. Obviously, the upper echelon players, the Knicks have passed them. The lower mid-tier teams like Toronto, I would still put over the Charlotte Hornets. The Bulls, I would still put over the Charlotte Hornets. Maybe they could compete more with Chicago, but for the most part, they're stuck in that bottom play-in range, like 10 seed, maybe, if that. It's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to see what their success is going to be. But honestly, I can't look past what is going to be a glaring issue with games missed. Gordon Hayward's had a long injury history. Terry Rozier is probably the only player that doesn't have one. And you can pretty much pencil in them to miss like 15, 20, 25, 30 games. And they don't have the culture and the backup players to survive that kind of lengthy period of time lost. I have this team winning about 35 games this year, which is better than last year, but it's not exactly what you were expecting for them after they won 43 games 2 years ago. It's really unfortunate where they found themselves. Most of it's not their fault. Who can tell? Like, it's not the team's fault that Miles Bridges did what he did. It's not the team's fault that LaMelo Ball got injured. And it's starting to look like a thing for that family where they ended up having, I guess, weaker structures physically than you would expect. Next up, we have a really promising team here in the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic were a bit of a surprise. Despite having a really, really high pick, a top pick last year, and getting Paolo Banchero, they ended up winning 34 games this past season, which was still pretty bottom on the East. But you can see where they're going. Like, there's a lot of visual potential here. Like, you can see the success right around the corner for this squad. So they lost Bol Bol. He basically didn't even play for them. Doesn't impact them. They lose Michael Carter-Williams. Doesn't impact them. This success is tied to the growth of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, who both were incredible over the summer. They did good work in the FIBA runs. They looked really solid in preseason. And then they just added in Jett Howard and Anthony Black, just adding in intriguing young talent for this roster that's already rife and full of it. They seem to be wanting to sell out on Cole Anthony, which I think is a little unfair. But with the rise of Markelle Fultz, I kind of get it. Fultz found his rhythm. He became a really pivotal rotation player for them. Markelle was averaging 14 points and 6 assists and 4 boards on 51% from the field, despite shooting 31% from 3. So they have makings of a really bright young team here. Paolo Banchero, 20 points, 7 boards, 4 assists in his rookie season. Only 20 years old, played 72 games en route to winning Rookie of the Year. Franz Wagner, 18.6 points on 48 and 36 splits. 4 rebounds, 4 assists, really good. Wendell Carter, they picked him up from the Bulls. 15 points, 9 boards, 2.3 assists. So just solid around the board. This is a team that full of young talent. Cole Anthony, 13 points, 4 assists, and 5 boards, 45% field, 36-3. They have everything that you need. They have everything that you need. Going into this season, their final roster, Jonathan Isaac hasn't played. I think you can just pencil in him missing a lot of time this year. But Markelle Fultz is signed up for this year at least. He has to be extended. This is last year. Wendell Carter's locked in for 3 years. Paolo Banchero's locked in for 3 years. This is the last year of Gary Harris, who could be trade bait for another young player, maybe a back-end pick. Jalen Suggs came up at the end of last season, was killing in the guard position. Cole Anthony seems to be on his way out. Franz Wagner locked in for 2 more years before being a restricted free agent. They would be crazy to not bring him back. And his brother Mo Wagner at the 5 position as a stretch 5. Like, they have a lot of young talent that encapsulate multiple ways of play, which is really important to do. And they seem to have a good culture brewing in terms of how they've handled things over the course of the year. Jamal Mosley did a solid job for them, and he's going to retain as coach entering this season. It's really hard to not see the vision on this roster. This roster is solid. And then beyond all of that, they've retained most of their draft picks with more. So this year they have their first and their second. Next year they have Denver's top 5 protected first, which will more than likely be a really good draft pick. Not more like really good, but it's going to convey to them because they're not going to be a bottom 5 team. They have their own 2025 first. They have Boston or Memphis's unprotected second and their own second. They get their own 2026 first with the ability to swap with Phoenix or Washington. They have, I can't even count all these picks. There's like 30 of them. They have so many draft picks with the ability to either find young talent, which they've done. They've done that very well. Or trade for players that are available. Maybe bring on a good veteran. Maybe a superstar becomes available. Someone like Zion Williamson, someone, Karl Anthony Towns. A player comes out there that's available for you. They have the chance to trade for him. So the future in Orlando is very bright, and they have maneuverability. This is the rebuild done right. This is a full-blown, they tore it to the studs. They got rid of Aaron Gordon. They got rid of Nikola Vucevic, and they brought back young talent, draft picks, and cap flexibility. So Orlando, well done. This team, honestly, I think they could be around the 500 range. It's really hard to tell with how the Eastern Conference has played out, but they didn't really do much in terms of their offseason besides show incredible strides of development from their bright young players in Banchero and Franz. Is Banchero going to average 25? That's my opinion on it. I think so. Franz Wagner's probably going to be in the low 20 range. And that's all they really need. Just a little bit of a bump from them, become a little bit better at basketball. And 34 seems like it's not going to happen again. They're going to be in the 40 range. They've already hit their rebuild window. They brought back 2 players that look like they're going to be superstars. And they have a lot of other young talent that can supplement their talent. And they got those players in the best possible positions. Like back in the 90s and the 80s, you wanted a center. You wanted a big man that can play ball. In today's game, the most valuable position is the wing. If you get a superstar wing, you're in the best spot possible. And they got 2 of them. So this is the most ideal scenario for a team that hasn't really seen success since Dwight Howard was there a decade ago. And they've done a good job. And now the final team that we have on the list, I have no notes on them because I didn't even think it was worth putting notes for. But The Washington Wizards. This is not a good team. I don't think anybody is going to mistake them for a good basketball team, but they made good moves, right? What were they doing last year? They supermaxed Bradley Beal, which I think everybody was unanimously leaning towards that being the wrong play. Hey, we're going to give this guy who has not given us any success $260 million. Here you go. Highest paid player in the NBA. And now they moved off of him, and they brought back tons of draft capital. And then they got an old player in Chris Paul, and they traded him for more draft capital and Jordan Poole. So they became a very young team overnight. Their payroll looks like Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma making 27 and 25 million respectively. They pick up Tyus Jones in a 3-team deal that sent Kristaps Porzingis over to Boston, sent Marcus Smart over to Memphis, and they get Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones is one of my favorite players in the NBA. Tyus Jones is just a brilliant backup point guard that can play really well in starter positions, but for the most part, you would rather have him as your secondary. But if he's your starter and you have talent around him, he's going to help you win, right? His value was really under the radar for the first half of his career in Minnesota. And then his value kind of blossomed a little bit in Memphis, where we really started seeing what he could do because of the time that Ja Morant was going to miss. Ja Morant's one of the better players in the league. I'm ranked 35. I would put him closer to the top 20, but top 20 player and Ja Morant goes down, typically your ship is going to sink. But you throw in Tyus Jones, who's one of those. My comparison for Tyus is one of those Andre Miller, Jose Calderon players. Those guys that just, they know how to prop up your team for extended periods of time. If that's your starting point guard, you're like, that's not bad. That's good. You know, I got a floor general. I got a guy who's going to make the right decision 95% of the time. But if you have an opportunity to get a superstar, you go for it. And Tyus Jones in this point is not a superstar. He's going to be giving the Washington Wizards exactly what they need. A floor general. I don't think they've had that in a long time either. I think John Wall, but yeah, he was more of like a superstar floor general. So he a little bit different than what this guy can offer. Jones just came off of his season averaging a career high 10 points, a career high 5 assists, a career high 2.5 rebounds, and despite him being in the NBA for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons, he's never had 1 year, not 1 year, where he averaged more than 0.9 turnovers per game, which is incredible for a guy who is giving you 5 assists a night. To not even have 1 turnover is crazy. Played over 20 minutes 3 times in his career, 19 minutes once, not 1 turnover per game. That is such an incredible statistic, and it's just an ode to how well he plays basketball. Is he going to go out there and give you 40 points and 36 assists? No, he's not James Harden. He's not Russell Westbrook, but he's going to make the right decision, make the right play, and get your guys in the right positions to win basketball games, which is what we've seen in Memphis when Ja Morant misses 20 games for injury or misses 30 games to suspension. They're going to miss him in Memphis, I'll tell you that much. But Memphis also had the superstar talent around him in Desmond Bane and Dillon Brooks and Jaren Jackson Jr. to supplement what Tyus Jones can do. That's not something that Washington has. Jordan Poole is probably going to average 30 shot attempts per game. He's going to go ballistic. He's going to have nothing but a green light because they don't have other players that can supplement the scoring that they're going to need, right? You can pencil in 20 for Kyle Kuzma. You can pencil in 10 to 15 for Tyus Jones. But where are you going to get the other 90 points from, right? You gotta put up 120 to win. This team doesn't exactly have defensive chops, especially if Jordan Poole is going to be playing 36 minutes a night. So where are they going to get the rest of it? A lot of it is going to be Jordan Poole just throwing up a lot of points. In terms of success this season, I don't see much of it. They finished with 35 and 47 with Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis as the leads on that team, with Kyle Kuzma being a third. You're going from that to Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, and Tyus Jones. It's a massive talent drop. And they traded Rui Hachimura midseason. Sorry, so let me just boil this down. Last year, Bradley Beal, 23 points. Kristaps Porzingis, 23 points. Kyle Kuzma, 21 points. And then Rui Hachimura, 13 points. 3 of those names are now not on the team. So a lot of this is going to be internal development from rookies that were already on the older side of things, like in the early 20s, 21, 22, and Denny Advia and Corey Kispert. And now those players are a year older and probably going to be what they are already, maybe a little bit better. So I had this team winning less than 20 games. My friend Kirk is on the complete opposite side of that. He thinks they're going to be pushing 30. They could, right? Maybe. Jordan Poole is a nuclear player. He's a guy that can give you 50. He's going to be throwing up crazy stats. Like, can you imagine him with a green light? He was trying to do that already. He was on the cusp of doing that on a team that doesn't want you to do that. And he's still, despite there being an insane amount of dysfunction, he still gave you 20 points a night on 15 shot attempts. Now he's going to have an unlimited, just jack it, bro. Just launch it. He's going to be shooting like 40 times. It's gonna be nuts. Washington's going to be one of those teams that if there's no game on, like 7 o'clock, I don't want to watch the Knicks play. I don't want to watch this team play. You're going to watch Washington play, and they're going to give you some crazy moments. But now let's talk about, I gave you my prediction. I'm like 18 to 24 wins, maybe. What did they walk away with? Right? They traded a couple of superstars. They got back Jordan Poole, Tyus Jones. What else? They get a 2024 first-round pick swap with Phoenix. They get a 2024 second-round pick from Phoenix. 2025 second-round pick from Phoenix. 26, 27, and where is it? 2030 second-round picks from Phoenix. They have a Golden State top 20 protected pick in 2030. They have the Lakers 2 second-round picks from that Rui Hachimura deal. They have a lot of draft picks, mostly second-round picks, but they did a pretty good job considering they didn't exactly have trade leverage, right? Bradley Beal had a no trade clause, and I feel deceived. You need a separate channel for AJM and the PM. I agree. That's the joke I make every time I stream this now when it comes to recording after 12 o'clock. But they make all these trades. They didn't really have the trade leverage when it came to Bradley Beal because he had a real no trade clause. And his massive, we're talking about bad contracts, Bradley Beal was getting paid, man. Let's see if I can find that. See if I can find his contract. Where is it? I know he signed a 5-year deal. Why is it nowhere to be found? Just click his name. Boom, there you go. He's getting paid $46 million this season, $50 the next, $53 the year after that, and $57 after that one. So he has a lot of opportunity. They found a way to squeeze opportunity out of something that gave him nothing. Guy who his window for success was not making the playoffs. A guy who they massively overpaid, and now they shipped him off to Phoenix where he has a real chance to win with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And, you know, they took their own franchise out of being in the worst possible place. In the NBA, you either want to be really, really good or really, really bad. If you find yourself in the middle like Washington has done the last 6 seasons, you're going to screw yourself over. It's the same thing that Orlando did. Orlando was like, hey, we can keep making the 8th seed with DJ Augustine running the point, or we can get rid of these players that make us good enough to win some games and make our team really bad to lose a lot of games and potentially draft a player that can help us win a lot of games, which they did with Paolo Banchero. Now, the Wizards have the same opportunity. They don't exactly have really good draft capital for this season, entering 2024, but this is like the worst year to have good draft capital because there's no good players coming into this draft. So they found a way to thread the needle in a way that I didn't think was possible, and they got off of some of the worst contracts the NBA has to offer. So congrats to Washington. If you're a fan of that franchise, they did a really good job in a window of opportunity that I don't think most people should have seen any opportunity. And that's pretty much it. That's it for the rest of this division. The Southeast Division is marred with certain levels of success, right? The Heat, obviously one of the most successful franchises the last couple of seasons, 2 finals in 4 years. They made a conference finals run, so they've made at least the conference finals in 3 out of 4 seasons. You have the Charlotte Hornets, who are in the middle of an awkward but not really good rebuild despite having a superstar in there. You have the Washington Wizards, who completely tore it down to the studs and have an opportunity to be exceptionally exciting, while also having an actual rebuild and more trade bait. You can't tell me that somebody mid-season is not going to want to trade for Tyus Jones. If you can find a way to get another first-round pick for him, that'll be great. It's the best opportunity possible. Like, this is a solid but really awkward division, and I'm excited to see what they do going forward. The Hawks are the weirdest one because they've drafted really well while having opportunity to be successful, but they're just kind of strangled in a really competitive conference. The East is, you have 6 teams that realistically can make a chance, like make some noise, get to the conference finals. You have 3 teams that can fight for a championship: Boston, Miami, maybe even New York at this point. When you have Cleveland, Philly, Atlanta's caught in that weird range where they can't really compete with those guys, but they might be able to upset them. If they do win one of those series, it'll be considered an upset. And that's not what they want. They're going to find themselves in the middle. However, AJ Griffin looks like a promising young prospect. And the Magic, who I think are going to be one of the better teams in the East this year. But that's it for this episode. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, especially AJM and the PM here. It is AM somewhere in the world. 100% true. We're streaming for that West Coast, right? 3 hours behind. Still AM. It's 11 over there. So, right, I know I'm in New York, but it's AM somewhere. And I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.